I will. Okay.
I see. Oh, we're live. I see Marissa snuck up on us and did it.
Bye.
She was like, "Get started, ladies. Stop talking."
We're here. It's Friday night, and we have Denny with us this evening. Yay! Denny S. Bryce. I'm so excited. The time has come.
Yeah. It's been a while. It's been a long time in the coming, I would say.
But this is great. This is fantastic. So if you're joining us tonight, welcome to the Boozy Book Broads. Here we are. Hello. And we are going to
I'm doing show and tell. What's for?
Oh, very nice. Ooh, and you have like the flute champagne glass.
Yes. I don't have the 1920s.
I went and dug it out.
Yeah. You all fancy girls. It's all going down the same gullet. And then we have gin.
I was like, because I don't know if I have gin. I was looking and like, do I have gin? And I was like going through. I've got my alcohol is right here next to me.
Is that where your bar is, Melanie?
Computer, where it should be.
Like la la la, la la la.
She hasn't.
That's pretty intense there.
That is awesome.
It's right there. Oh, you know what I have in here, which is not. Oh my God, look what you want to talk about college days. Look at this stuff.
Oh my God, you have Jaeger in your office.
Oh my God. I haven't seen Jaeger since I tended bar.
I think it's from a party where we were making something called a dirty Girl Scout. I don't know.
Oh no.
I don't even want to know the origins of that. Something is announcing to me that my internet may be unstable. So if I disappear or
dear. We feel you, Denny's internet. We're all a little unstable. Yeah. But anyway, so here we are, the Boozy Book Broads. This is Friday, April 16th. I'm Melanie Johnson, and we are here tonight with Denny S. Bryce, author of Wild Women and the Blues.
Yay.
And my fellow broads, Danielle Dresser and Angelina M. Lopez. Make sure, if you're joining us this evening, that you go to lovesweetarrow.com to check out Denny's books and my books and Angelina's books, and soon, eventually Danielle's books too. But so here we go. Also to check out more events like this one tonight. So for this evening, we have Danielle as our room mom. Yeah. And what this means is that as we're talking this evening, Danielle will be checking the chat on YouTube. So your comments and your questions, everything, she will see it. So when she's looking off to the side, she's not ignoring us. She's checking the chat, and she'll make sure to ask your questions to Denny that you have, so put them in the chat. And as we're asking questions amongst ourselves, like what are you drinking tonight, and some of the other questions, you can answer those as well in the chat, and we'll do some shout outs. So that's that. Also important to know, our room mom picks a lucky winner from the chat. So the more times you comment, the more chances to win.
Yes.
$10 gift card to Love Sweet Arrow to kick off a shopping spree. And speaking of shopping, we do have a discount code for an item from Love Sweet Arrow. This month, the select item of the month. Do you have it, Danielle?
I have one. It's the very fun Stay Home, Read Romance, Save the World shirt. The front, and then on the back, it's the Love Sweet Arrow logo.
So yes, you can get one of those super cute shirts. And if you use the code for a discount, you will get, is it 15% off?
Yeah, 15% off through the end of the month, and it's BBB April discount. I'll put it in the chat in just a second. I want to tell a quick story about this shirt because, at the beginning of the pandemic, Marissa and I were texting each other multiple times a day. I mean, we still text each other multiple times a day, basically, but we were just frantic. We were like, what do we do? And everyone just needs to stay home and read books. And then we were like, stay home and read romance novels. And we kept talking about it. And one of us in our long text chain, like literally put that in there. And we were like, that needs to go on a shirt. And that's how it kind of was born. So yeah, so I think Marissa is putting it up there. I will put it in at the end too, in the chat. But yeah, it's BBB April discount. Not too hard to remember, hopefully.
Yeah, Robert, I see that you need that shirt. We'll go and buy that shirt. You can get the discount. All right. So let me pull. I had my questions here. Okay, sorry. I had I am, because I'm in charge tonight, so I have to kind of keep it together. This is always trouble.
There is this tremendous like relaxation. I'm not room mom. I'm not in charge. I just be like, Denny, cheers. Cheers, Denny. Cheers.
Not running my lips. Running my mouth.
This actually rolls into what we were going to talk about next, which is what are you drinking? And Angelina, I see the bottle behind you and notice the red wine glass. Are you drinking your family's wine?
Oh, I am. Yeah, we are wine growers. We don't actually make wine. We just sell it to other winemakers. But 2019, we decided to take some of our Pinot Noir grapes and make our own wine. We're not selling them. We're going to use them for charity and auction events, but my parents sent me 2 cases, which I got to open today. And I love I love champagne cocktails, but I was like, no, I got to drink the Pinot. So yeah, that's my family's wine on a label, and super exciting because my parents work super, super hard. So it's wonderful to be able to toast them this evening. And the wine is so good. So good. So yes, I'm drinking my Dance Family Vineyards wine.
Not jealous at all.
Where's your family's vineyards again?
It's in the Russian River Valley in Sonoma County. And actually, having said this, Broads and Denny, you guys get a bottle. Just let's get addresses and everyone gets a bottle. Yeah,
that's
totally.
So fabulous.
Yeah.
I did it's been years. People may know I love to travel, and one of my favorite places is anywhere there's wine. So I've been to Sonoma and spent time with a wine grower, and a grape vineyard person.
Yeah.
And they talked about the dirt, the age of the vines, and all of this just fabulous stuff. So it's one of my other things I'd like to do at some point in time.
Denny,
just sort of hang.
You have an invite. We'll come
one day.
We'll come do the thing. Travel. But literally, I'm writing it down. Don't forget to send wine. Send wine.
Well, we should do a live from their vineyard Boozy Book Broads episode.
Oh my God, that would be so
a retreat.
Yes.
And there are some restaurants in Sonoma County where they have the wines matched with the foods.
It's a lifestyle. It really is.
It's going to happen. All right. So Angelina is drinking her family's red. Danielle, what are you drinking tonight?
I made a French 75 as a drink of the night, and it's delicious. I love it so much. This is actually when we could go out regularly, this is like the cocktail I would get when we would go.
Really?
Yeah.
With gin?
I could do gin. We just had I know you don't love gin. I like gin, but you have to mix it with something. It can't by itself, gin is not great. But yeah, it's just we had some Tanqueray, so that's what's in here, champagne. Little lemon juice. We're good.
It looks beautiful too.
It's very fancy. Yeah.
It's very fancy.
So Denny, you were pouring one too. So you're drinking your version of a French 75. Yes. Oh,
and
very fancy.
Clear and champagne-y mine because of the top full of gin I put into this drink. And I'm not a gin person. I've had a champagne with vodka and ginger, which has nothing to do with the 1920s. That is fabulous.
That I want to try. because I love anything with
some bar I
ginger.
was in Miami, but it was absolutely fabulous. So I really don't like the taste of gin.
So
But this is supposedly the French 75 because it's champagne, there's some lemon, and a cap full of gin. So I did my best.
You just waved it over the glass.
I just
it's totally
that's all I could do.
it wafted in this end. So champagne, vodka, and is it like
It was literally a slithers of gin.
okay, so not like ginger beer, but like actual slivered ginger. Oh, nice.
Ginger.
I'm gonna have to try that sometime.
Different.
I was in a hurry, so I'm not like super fancy right now. I'm actually I don't even think I have alcohol in my glass. I just have some tonic water, which is it's very tasty. It looks very pretty.
Yeah.
So
Very pretty.
maybe I'll get my husband to pop a champagne bottle for me later. That's what he's.
She
We all froze. Oh, there we go.
She did. She'll come back. I just know it.
She freezes every now and then.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We'll go on to the next question. Hang on, now I gotta find it. There we go. So obviously, Denny, your book takes place in Chicago. So we thought we would talk about.
How about if I just tell you some things about this fabulous book? Where is it? Oh,
she's back.
Within arm's length.
Hey.
She's back. Wild Women in the Blues is historical fiction. It is written with a dual timeline, and the time periods that I play with 1925 Chicago and 2015 Chicago. In the 2015 story, I have a young man by the name of Sawyer Hayes who is suffering a great loss, and he wants to hang on to something to get his life back on track, something that he can finish. So he decides to finish his thesis. He's a grad student in film, and his thesis on Oscar Micheaux, who is a legendary Black filmmaker, had stalled when the great loss occurred. So he's rummaging through his grandmother's attic, finds a box of things. In the box are a reel of film, old school film, and some photos of Oscar Micheaux with a woman that he's like, wow, maybe my grandmother knew these people. But then on the back is a phone number. And, knowing about history, a modern phone number, because in the past they were like VA, blah, blah, and, had all this stuff going on. So he calls the number and he gets connected to a senior living facility. And there he meets a woman, Honorée Dalcour, who's 110. And so he's very excited. Well, as excited as he can be, and because he has other issues going on, about meeting with this woman. In 1925, we meet 19-year-old Honorée Dalcour, and she is an ambitious showgirl. Chorus girl. I don't know why I keep saying showgirl. There's a very big difference between a showgirl, which is more Las Vegas, if you will, versus a chorus girl who is more not Las Vegas. So that's about the best I can say. And so she's really about striving to move on up from Miss Hattie's speakeasy in a seedy part of town to the Dreamland Cafe on State Street. And things get in her way. Quite a few things get in her way, but she's resilient and forceful, determined. Even in 1925, not always making the right choices, but she is fearless about making some kind of choice. So these two stories find a way to merge and come together in surprising ways. And that's Wild Women in the Blues, in short, without spoilers.
Right. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the dual timeline and some of the history. And as when you first talked about this book and having it be set in Chicago, I was I was excited, not just because I'm from Chicago, but I really like that history. So we kind of do, before we get like really do a deep dive into the book, we kind of have a little bit of fun chat. So we're going to do some quick little questions that we all can answer. So I wanted to ask, what is the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word Chicago, Denny?
The lakefront.
Oh.
Yes, the lakefront. And the lakefront travels from South Side all the way down to, I went to school out in Lake Forest. So just following that lakefront up and down to the beautiful Oak Street beach area. I lived at one point in time on the top floor of a place on 63rd and South Lakeshore Drive.
Okay.
So I could look out my window and see the water at night. I mean, Lake Michigan I love water. I love oceans and seas and that sort of thing. But Lake Michigan is an inland sea. It is.
Massive.
And
it feels like it.
It's just so fantastic. So I think of the lakefront.
Love it. I love it. How about you, Angelina? You hear Chicago, what comes to mind?
My son is a student at Columbia College, and so you take this 19-year-old suburban kid, and the Columbia College is a block away from the lake, and the dorms are downtown Chicago, and so my 19-year-old suburban, Northern Virginia suburban kid became city kid like that. And, and fully embraced it. And when COVID hit and he had to come home, he was wildly depressed, and like rightfully so. Like, you're a 19-year-old in downtown Chicago living the life, and suddenly you have to come home. And so he went back in July, and is now he took this semester off and is supporting himself and making music and filming videos and doing all of the creative things he wanted to do, and just making just this. He's living the dream, and he's still 19. He'll turn 20 in June, but he's my baby boy, like making it in Chicago, and I'm in awe of him. I'm terrified for him. I'm all of the emotions about having your baby live in Chicago, but he's making it happen, and it's really, really awesome.
I used to teach at Columbia College.
Oh, did you really? I had no idea. Oh my God.
I just remembered. I only taught. I just remembered. It wasn't top of mind until you mentioned Columbia College.
It was
dance classes there years ago when I was.
It's got a phenomenal film program, and he's taking a break off because he didn't want to take school during COVID. But brilliant. Anyway, I had no idea, Denny. That's so cool.
I just remembered. It's like everything is like a blur. Life writing books. It comes back to you in stages.
In a little bit. Yeah. So Danielle, what about you? What's something that comes to mind when you hear Chicago?
So I'm going to take a different route because I've grown up outside of Chicago my entire life. My dad was basically raised there. My grandma lived in Hyde Park for a really long time. So when I think of Chicago, I immediately just think of my family. And we would spend, my brother and I would go stay with my grandma, not quite every month, but we would go down there, and we were always going to all the museums and shows and things like that. And it's also the city where like my husband lived in Chicago when we first started dating, and it's like the city where we fell in love and all of that. So yeah, I really think of my family and all of that. But I think if I think of like a landmark, I think I probably first think of the Art Institute, because I can just spend as much time, like an entire day at the Art Institute, and never get bored with it every single time.
I love it.
Yeah, I know, having grown up and lived and everything in Chicago, even going to college in Chicago, I didn't really leave this area at all. So there's lots of things I think of, but if I'm asked what do you what do you associate with Chicago? Yeah, I would say the mobsters, Al Capone, those stories. I definitely connect that to Chicago. I remember sitting with my dad watching the moment that they opened Al Capone's vault. And the long, sad trombone.
The only thing there. Yeah.
But all of that history and all of those, and there's these stories about knowing someone who knew someone who had stuff hidden under the floorboards. There's all of those little stories, throughout the history of it. So that's what I think of with Chicago, and it's another reason why I was so excited for Denny's book, for all those little like pieces and things that she wove into the story.
We have some really good comments from the chat.
Okay.
We have the Sears Tower, which I completely agree with.
Thank you for calling it the Sears Tower and not the Willis Tower.
Right? That's
silly. Thank you. The Shed Aquarium, the lake, the skyline. Robert, of course, said LSA because he's totally sucking up. Love Sweet Arrow. Let's see. Celeste says living downtown.
Yeah.
And Janelle says she thinks of her dad because he was born and raised on the South Side. So yes, I think we're just convincing everyone to come visit, basically. When it's safe, of course, when it's safe. But yes.
And no one has said pizza yet, so
There's that. Pizza.
So good.
So we talked a little bit about champagne cocktails already, and I definitely have to try the one with vodka. But does anyone, we don't have to go around, but does anyone have another champagne cocktail that they like?
What's the one with Chambord and vodka and
is it like raspberry?
Yeah, well, it's the name of a drink. My girlfriend orders it all the time. But yes, Chambord liqueur, champagne. That might be all that's in it. Anyway,
I think there's just the two things. A Cuba Libre.
What?
A Cuba Libre.
No, that's rum. Yeah, I'll like text her. Yeah, but yeah, Chambord, champagne, and Cuba Libre's rum.
Okay. But there's one where there's the red stuff at the bottom, and it's
the Chambord and I completely blanking what the name of that is, but it's delicious.
It's tasty. It's very tasty, especially in. But see, I love champagne. The good stuff. And you watch the bubbles. The smaller the bubbles, the less headache.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because it's less carbonation, or
it's just the less expensive stuff will give you a bad headache, and it usually has fatter bubbles.
I see. I learned something new tonight.
It's Cure Royale.
Champagne.
Denny, it's a Cure Royale.
Yes.
Cure Royale.
I don't know where Cuba Libre comes from because I can't even smell rum. I can't smell it. It's just like down for the count. It's like wine, champagne, and vodka.
Yeah,
yes, it is very tasty.
Very tasty.
I'm getting several new drinks to try here this evening.
It's delicious.
Make a list. What are you doing? So we cannot talk about this book without talking about jazz a little bit here. And I did want to ask if, our broads have a favorite jazz song, favorite jazz performer. And this could be classic or contemporary, or if you have both, you can let us know. So Denny, we'll start with you. Do you have a favorite?
It's really difficult for me to pick favorites in music because I love music, all forms of music, and jazz has had such an evolution over time. I mean, you can go all the way back to the early days of, Scott Joplin and ragtime music and the evolution that was late 19th century. And as you move into the 20th century, you have Storyville and the jazz scene in New Orleans, which was a specific sound. But then you go through and you end up in the 40s and the 50s, and you have, Monk and, Wystan Marsalis. I mean, it's just too much for me to pick one because I love it all. I even love smooth jazz. I shared something, I think, with Herb Albert, with his saxophone. I mean, it's almost cheesy.
And you're right. There's a different
There's so many different forms. So I guess one of my favorites is Sinner Man by Nina Simone.
Sinner Man by Nina Simone.
Okay. Yes. And if you've read the book, it's in the book. I'll say that.
Angelina, do you have a favorite song or performer?
Yeah, for my when I for a my when I was pregnant with my first son, and for my gifts for babies, what's that called?
It's been that long. It's like whatever.
He's so old. Anyway, for that party, my mom's boss gave me a CD of the Modern Jazz Quartet's album Pyramid, and this album came out in the late 50s. But the Modern Jazz Quartet was all Black men and instrumentation. It was very heavily on the the
percussion instruments.
Yeah, no, but the belly one.
And cymbals.
Yeah, no, yeah.
No,
anyway,
it's the piano thing. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, alcohol and words.
Are you talking about a xylophone?
Xylophone, yes, it's very heavy on the xylophone. That being said, I recommend everyone in the audience go. You can Apple Music or whatever. Pyramid Modern Jazz Quartet is one of the coolest albums. It's got 6 songs on it, and it's just super cool. It's got this really great rhythm. It's got these great hooks, and that really, I don't listen to a lot of jazz, but it's like one of those things that I can be like in a conversation with like people, and I'd be like Modern Jazz Quartet, and they're like, hey, and I'm like, I know, I'm cool, right? Because I'm faking it so hard. But yeah, it's a phenomenal album. Pyramid Modern Jazz Quartet. Go listen to it. Highly recommend.
All righty. Danielle, how about you?
I love like Miles Davis. I can put on any of his albums, I think, and just get lost, and it's wonderful. I think Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong, obviously, I love like classic jazz, like from this time period. I think it's so amazing, and like into the 40s and 50s.
Into the 40s. Frank Sinatra is actually brilliant. Just watched a special with Sinatra. Loved him.
Yeah, I kind of fell into jazz by accident. So I went with my husband. He was like in a music class for college, and he had to like watch a set number of performances for credits. And so it was before she was really big, but Diana Krall. So she was in a performance there, and so we went to go see it, and I just fell in love. Like I fell in love with the music, with the sound, and there were some guys there that were sitting next to us who were into it so intensely. It was like they were at a rock concert, and when the bass player was like doing his thing with like the big bass, that's bigger than him, they were both like rocking out like air jazz bass. I was like, this is amazing that they're so into it. So after that, I kind of started to do a little dive into finding other songs that I liked. And I just really like to listen to like Ella and to Billie, like out on a summer night, like when the stars are out and you're sitting in the backyard in the summer. There's nothing like that vibe with those songs. So it's just, there's something about it that you just chill. And I'm not getting to chill with that champagne. It will be a mood.
Dangerous. It's dangerous.
It'll be a mood. Yeah. So
yeah.
And when Diana has come back to Ravinia, Denny, you from Chicago, you probably know Ravinia. Yeah. When she comes back from Ravinia, I always go because it's just to sit outside in the, summertime under the stars and listen to jazz.
Don't remind me of those things that have been so far away for so long.
I know we can't do. Well, I pretend I have Ravinia in my backyard by myself.
Oh, I can listen to a lot of music, but it's just that shared
vibe
that I like a lot, where people are all in the same space and in the same mindset, if you will. I love it.
Definitely, very much so. Totally get it. Yep. So speaking of people and seeing people and getting together with people, I was going to talk about how I first met you, but Angelina has me beat here with how long she's.
And her memory's really good.
I am so sorry. I didn't.
Well, it is, girl. Just that mess out there.
So you met Denny at a retreat, you were saying, the Washington Romance Writers.
Oh, yes.
You were a Waterworld mermaid, Denny.
It's been that long?
Yeah, that was 2009. Yeah, the Washington Romance Writer would have this big retreat every year, and one year this cavalcade of really excited, interesting writers, aspiring writers, all came, and I'd been going for years.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, we had this 1 year of all of these writers, and it was Denny, and it was
Tip Dunn,
Tip Dunn,
Contis, Robin Covington, Avery Flynn.
yeah.
Oh my God, I'm missing some people. But
Carrie, damn, I'm forgetting again. Words and alcohol do not mix. But anyway, these amazing people, and they all came to retreat, and and Sarah Megabo was one of our guests.
yes,
And Kristen Higgins was our guest too. Kristen Higgins was our guest, and it just the energy of that entire retreat between our guests and between the new people there was just astonishing. And that group of writers, so we would play this game, and they got the nickname of the Waterworld Mermaids. And that group of writers,
Lisa Contis came up with the name for us.
Yeah. And that group of writers just took the world by storm immediately. And being the Washington Romance writers and having been a long time member, like it was so awesome to be to be part of that energy to a certain extent. And so that was it was a very significant year for a retreat. That was pretty significant in my life. And so Denny,
that group was
by storm.
Significant for me as well, because I name dropped some people in the group, but we had actually formed at WRW. I have so many different organizations in my head. I must differentiate. But Washington Romance Writers, it was my very first, all of us met and had attended our very first retreat. And so Alethea decided to corral us to form this group. And during the year between our first meeting and by the time we got to year 2, we were hyper. We were just like, let's write, let's do this, let's write all the time, let's talk about writing all the time.
And the way you guys took over positions in WRW and RWA, and really we're like, this is the energy, and this is it's happening for us.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
And it was fun. It was definitely fun. And I learned a lot from that group. That group was really magical in the early days. And kept me, because at the time I was working full time. I was running a marketing and PR firm, and it was pretty impossible for me to do that job and write, because I was all over the country. I mean, I used to use writing events as my vacation from my work. And I probably didn't decide to take writing seriously until 2013. And by 2015, after I won the RWA's Old Golden Heart thing, I slowed down on my business. I decided that I want to see if I can make this happen. So only 6 years after making that decision, do I finally get a book out.
Yeah, because that's what we're going to talk about. Because in 2016 is when, speaking of, it's funny that mermaids keeps swimming through.
Yeah.
In 2016, Denny and I were Golden Heart finalists together
Oh,
in a
yes.
group called the Mermaids.
Yes. And there was this whole thing. Do you mind if we call ourselves the Mermaids because of the water? I was like, I don't care.
Right. I know, like the whole name thing becomes a whole.
It was way okay.
But regardless, the important part was we were a finalist with Wild Women and the Blues. That was the book.
Yeah, that was the first. I think it was a romance in 2016 as well.
Yeah, right, because I was going through and doing a little research and looking things up, and you know how we would go on the Ruby's website and do little interviews. And so I was rereading your interview about the book, and it was it was interesting to see that in comparison to having read the book now and the journey that the book took. So that was interesting because I think it was the angle with the research of the director, that all was
a lot of the 1925 storyline was there.
Right.
Even back into, I mean, actually the first contest that it won was in 2015, romance it was, I'm trying to remember, New Jersey romance writers won.
Okay, yes, the Golden Leaf or something like that.
No, that was for published authors. It was for Put Your Heart in the Book or something.
Right.
And that's where I established my relationship with Julia Quinn and my current agent. Julia has been incredibly supportive of this book because she was the final round judge in 2015.
That's amazing.
It really is one of those stories where you say, because I used to get, well, anyway, some people will make comments about contests, and actually it can build a momentum for you. In that particular contest, my current agent was the final round judge along with Julia Quinn, and both of them really loved the excerpt that I shared. Now, the evolution from that point took it to historical fiction because I'm in love with being a historical fiction author. I love romance, but it's not my genre. I am definitely more into, I love the historical fiction realm, if you will.
So are you still with Nalini?
Yeah. And then Julia's been very supportive of my release. I've done a couple of events with her recently and stuff like that.
No big deal. Just, the author of the Bridgerton series.
Yeah. It's been very exciting to have her always remember 2015 and how she felt about the book. Or I can't say book because there was no book. There was 25 pages. No, the truth be known, I for many years, I was the best at writing 25 or 50 pages of story.
That's the trick, right? That's the thing that takes you from, these first forays, and that's the, getting to the end and getting a full book out. That's, I think that's the journey. So 2016, you finally filed in the Blues, and right around that time, you'd also signed with Nalini, and then it wasn't too much longer after that you sold to.
Actually, I didn't sign with Nalini in 16. I don't think I signed with her in 18.
Oh, okay.
When the book. Can I remember right? Girl, I don't know. My memory's bad. I know that the book finaled again in 2018 with Under Mainstream.
Okay.
With a central romance or whatever. And it sold in February of 19, was due to hit in September of 2020. It moved to December of 2020. It moved to March of 2021. And I was good with every move. I was like, fine.
Yeah.
So, because the timing was, the marketplace was in, upheaval. And Kensington had a vision of where they wanted it to go. And I was totally on board. I said, keep moving.
Great.
Yeah.
That's great. And I think that like the cover and the way, so all of it just, so, it was a long and winding road and lots of things happening, but it, like you said, you were okay with every change and every push, but here we are, and it's happening.
Yay. Yeah, it's happening, and it's happening. It's happening in surprising ways because the buzz factor on the book has been very exciting. I think that the combination with the commitment from Kensington, as well as, you know, my publicist at Kensington, who is fabulous, Michelle Ado. And also I look back at the December listing of the book on Oprah Winfrey's magazine list. And I think that surprised the heck out of me and probably a lot of people. So it was something that kicked off of, you know, having the book really get some added attention. Mm-hmm. And you know, as an old marketing person, as a young marketing person, I look at how, you know, I'm teaching classes on marketing for some groups, but I talk about the combination of buzz and advertising and a commitment from the publisher, and all of these things work in tandem, and can be, and even and definitely for indie folks who look at their plan and how they're going to get out there and use the momentum that they're able to identify and keep things moving, and so that good things happen, but they don't happen necessarily by accident, because some of visibility has always been a part of how I look at my writerly experience. So I've been writing for freelance writing for years in the entertainment realm. Be it for USA Today's Happily Ever After, when that was around.
Right, I remember you used to do the book boyfriends. Yep. Yeah.
My first article for them was about Angelina.
Yeah. That was so awesome, Denny. I mean, that was really cool.
Well, you were killing it over at Wattpad. She was just a superstar over there, and just talking about the different avenues that romance writers were able to dive into. I mean, she was a natural story to me, and so my editor Joyce was like all on board for it.
This is why I love Denny. This is why everyone loves Denny.
It's a wildly small world. I'm just like the whole like
yeah,
very small.
Yeah, it works because, you know, and from USA Today is how I got Washington Independent. I was writing reviews for them, and then that's how I got NPR. So
amazing.
You get out there and you just keep, you know.
So with all of your writing experience and the writing journey, what would be the best piece of writing advice you think you have found?
For new writers, patience. Sometimes writers get in a hurry. It's like, I gotta get out there. I'm missing out on something. I don't know what's happening if I'm not out there. They feel the pressure. You know, you talk about the Waterworld mermaids. I'm the last one to get published. And it's about working at your personal pace. I'm a craft junkie. I was busy running a company. I took a breath and said, yeah, I could have done this. I could have done that. I actually turned down a contract 3 or 4 years ago because it didn't fit into where I was or what I was thinking about. Not that I knew, I don't have a crystal ball about choices, but I think it's very important for a writer to say, I don't have to rush myself into this business just because everybody around me is moving at a certain pace. Everybody's choice is individual and works, and you'll be surprised how it works. It can work for you by sitting back and saying, let me get off on craft. I'm a craft junkie. I said it, I admit it. I love taking classes and studying and reading and all that sort of stuff. It's good. It feels good. And this is like my fourth career too. So I've had
And and all those different pieces, I think, from your experience will weave together. And I want to get to the book.
Yes, the book.
The reason we're here this evening. And we talked a little bit about this before, about the fact that it is set during 1920 Chicago as well as 2015.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a little about the dual timeline. So you did live in Chicago yourself for a while.
Oh, yes, for a long while. I went to college outside of Chicago in Lake Forest, and then moved into the city and was there for a while. Moved to New York, was there for a while. Moved back into the city of Chicago for a while. I lived I lived on the South Side. I lived on the North Side. I lived in Oak Park. I lived in Hyde Park.
So while working on this book, what kind of research did you do? Because I was actually poking around myself a little bit, and like the Dreamland Cafe is sadly no longer there.
No, CVS is on the corner of 32nd Street and State. Yeah, things change. Research is critical as a historical fiction. I think research, let me just say this, research is important no matter what genre you're writing. It matters that you are taking the time to check out whatever atmosphere you want to create, whatever community you want your story to take place in. You want to know those things. With historical fiction, you also are looking at history as a stepping off point if you're writing commercial, versus biographical fiction, where you're really looking at the moments of a person's life that you're going to write about. And I am contracted to write a biographical fiction down the road, which I will get written soon. But I definitely spent time at the Harold Washington Library in Chicago, working with archivists and librarians.
I love that library. And you speaking
I
of
love that library.
Gorgeous building. Yeah.
The building is amazing, but I also worked with an archivist. At the time, the Vivian Harsh collection was being housed at the Harold Washington Library. The Vivian Harsh collection is the oldest African-American collection in the state of Illinois. And she had started this in the 30s, I believe, maybe the late 20s. But this woman that I worked with, and believe me, it's been a number of years, so I can't remember her name right now. She was just so generous with her time and her knowledge, and it was fabulous. And I had the same experience at the Library of Congress, where I worked with quite a few archivists and librarians there. Another great resource is the archives for the Chicago Defender. The Chicago Defender is the oldest African-American newspaper, one of the oldest, might be the oldest. Their archives are amazing. And you talk about another thing that people comment upon about the book is the atmosphere and the language. And there's a lot of that pulled from newspaper articles, as well as listening to recordings from the time period. And I also did a lot of some of the resource books I looked at. One of the things that a woman named L.A. Banks, the late L.A. Banks, who was an author for St. Martin's of paranormal, African-American paranormal stories, her series. And she said, always understand the economy of the place, the time period, the city you're writing about. So I definitely dived into the economy of 1920s Chicago, the Black Belt, because my stories feature African-American main characters, and will continue to feature African-American and/or Black main characters. And diving into what was happening in the 1920s in terms of how did people make money? How did people entertain themselves? How did people live? What was the difference between living on in a kitchenette in one part of town versus the beautiful house that Louis Armstrong and Lil Hardin Armstrong lived in on another part of town, but still within the borders, if you will, that African Americans could live in without facing, white segregationists who didn't want anybody moving out of the Black Belt or Bronzeville, as it eventually became known as. So, yeah, lots of research.
Sounds, yeah, like amazing too. Like just hearing those, working with the archivists and how they worked with you. That's all those experiences and the gathering of that information. And then you chose to, in a sense, have someone also having to do some research in your character and having those two timelines.
Well, yeah.
So go ahead.
No, go ahead. Ask me a question because I want to take a break and pour some.
Of course. Okay.
Yeah. What were you saying? Yeah, okay.
So we have 2015 and 1925. So we have this time spread and kind of jumping between the two. So did you find it difficult to write about two time periods within one story?
It wasn't so much difficult because I am such a fan of dual timelines. So what I wanted to do was to work through the how to do it. And also, so I read a lot of dual timelines. I don't know if you read.
Susanna Kearsley, I think, is one I like who does that.
But also Beatrice Williams, Chanel Cleaton, Kate Quinn. I mean, a lot of your historical fiction authors work in that realm where they're and what that allows is to create mystery, and also specifically to create mystery because of the gap in the timelines for Wild Women in the Blues. How do these stories connect? Is it just the name or what else is there? So you want to hopefully you're keeping your reader turning the page because of the characterizations and I'm a plotter. So characterizations, you want to make sure, for me, that's where I spend more time because to me, the plot comes a little bit faster than character.
I'm the exact opposite. The characters show up and then I have to figure out
what's going to happen to him shows up. And then I'm like, who are they?
So with all the research that you did, was there something that you discovered or learned that just you couldn't fit it into the book that you wish you could have?
About 15,000 words of couldn't fit it in the book.
Can you summarize?
Right. What happened then? One scene comes to mind, and that has to do with a scene in a record shop. Ooh. And a shop where I think I'm going to put it in my newsletter. I love this scene, but it did not work in the story. But I did all this research on this fabulous record shop on Michigan Avenue. Can't remember where it was. And they also sold the phonographs, and the way they had the albums were in, I don't know what you call them, but albums were in the wall. And just the whole structure of the space was so interesting. And it was like, no, get that mess out of there. Yeah. So that was one scene that sticks in my mind.
Newsletter material for sure. Like I think I would just eat that up.
That's why I like Scribner, because no word is lost. Okay, never lose a word because it's just.
Denny, I had a scene in my debut book where he cooked for her. He cooked tapas for her, and it was too long and I had to cut it, and my newsletter readers just ate that up. But I was like, no, you cooked for her.
Well, that's why they call them killing your darlings, because it's something precious for
because
us.
it hurts your feelings.
Yeah.
And but one thing my editor, one of the many things, she's fabulous, Essie Soga at Kensington.
Yeah.
She said that I needed to look at my 2015 timeline with the same historical intensity that I looked at 1925.
That when you talked about like research, no matter what you're writing or when, so that yeah.
But for historical fiction, sometimes, you know, because some people love dual timelines, and some people are, you know, like take them or leave them. But a lot will comments might say, you know, there's always a timeline that you're more attuned with, you know, you just sort of gravitate toward. So it's just I really, a lot of research went into, and plus as a first book, you also tend, I'll admit it, to second guess yourself a little bit. You know, it's like, I don't know, maybe. And now I'm like working on book 2.
We're going to talk about that in a second.
Just get it done.
Before we get to that, before we get to the
okay.
Next, I did want to, so you have this, I mean, when I say heroine, it's kind of tricky within this, the you know, the story, but you know, honoree, did I say, so honorary. Okay. Honorary. Thank you. Like, this is like when you read a book by yourself and you hear it and you.
No, but I put it in the book deliberately in a scene where she says, my name is Honorée, R-A, because somebody tried to call her something else. And in my mind, that's the way I wanted her poor.
Well, no, that definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
So she is like, I'm going to try and remember the exact age she is. 110. Thank you. She's 110 years old. And when we first meet her at this, you know, senior living center in the Bronzeville, and, you know, they're like, don't come in here trying to, like, you know, use her as some clickbait story about how's life at 110, and you know, what are, you know, she don't, you know, she's got all her faculties, she's all with it, you know, so she's not. So I was like just trying to think, like, you know, people talk about wanting to have a long life, but at the same time, you know, so
really want to have a long life that long. You know who inspired a bit of that, of her personality, is my aunt. My aunt is about to turn 95, and you get on the phone with her and you don't hear any age in her voice. Her voice is strong. Her faculties are spot on. She will not hesitate to share her thoughts, no matter what. And I was like, she's still kicking. And I'm just like, okay, cool, whatever. My grandmother was that way too. And it's really funny. She passed when she was like in her 80s, 89, I believe, is what we were told. And then on Ancestry.com recently, I found her listing on the ship. My grandmother was born in Jamaica, and my maternal grandmother. And so the ship that she traveled to this country on listed her age as 2 years older than she. So
my grandmother was guilty of that one too. Like, she made up like her birthday, like, and then like when she would get together with all of her siblings, and they would be like, no, I'm the younger one. You
weren't there. You don't know. But it's interesting when you have that sort of family dynamic. I had one interviewer ask me about the secrets. That secrets seem to be very much a theme of Wild Women in the Blues. And I was like, do you know how hard it is to get information out of my family about anything? So the twists and turns just seemed natural, because it's one of the things that I feel we all should do, and I think writers are doing it more routinely these days, is quizzing relatives and then trying to get information out of them, because there's some beautiful stories there and just interesting choices that people have had to make over time. And that's a part of what I enjoy doing with historical fiction, is not only really taking, exploring those communities and issues and things like that, that the African American community in particular has had to deal with, but also exploring the ways people lived that brought them joy. And that's another important part of storytelling, I believe, as well.
Before, I don't want to go too long without making sure that we, if our audience has questions. Danielle, has anyone had some questions for Denny that have popped up that you want to?
We've got one from Linda, and she says, I'm so happy for a historical book set in the Roaring 20s. Will Denny be writing more in that era?
Well, I'll talk a little bit about my second book coming from Kensington, which is called Blackbirds. It is set in 1920. It's a dual storyline set in 1928 and 1968. And the 1928 storyline takes place in Los Angeles. And just to give you a sense of LA during that time period, Hollywood was huge. The African American community was thriving, but also limited because of segregation, all of the usual points that stopped the community from contributing on and playing on the equal playing field. But there were still some superstars of Hollywood back in the 1920s who were African American, and some of them are important to that storyline. But my main character is a chambermaid at a hotel that I won't mention yet, but that hotel plays a significant part in the story. And then in 1968, that woman who was a 20-year-old in 1928 is on a road trip with a young woman traveling from Chicago to Los Angeles. And there's something she needs to settle after 40 years that she wants to get done. So yes, I'm revisiting 1928. And then I'm going to mention one other book, well, two other books I'm very excited about because I have another contract with Kensington. I'm doing another 1925 story, but it's semi-inspired by a real life story called, it was the Alice Rhinelander versus Kip Rhinelander case. It's a divorce, and the husband accuses his wife of being colored. And it was a front page news story. So I am writing inspired by that news story, and it'll be it's not a dual timeline, it's a 2 POV story. So those two are coming.
Wow. So
that's in America.
Yeah. That's and basing it off of an actual case of actual living characters. So when we first started talking, you mentioned the difference between, kind of this fictionalized history and this history based on real lives. So are you finding your research? I mean, because you mentioned real people in Wild Woman and the Blues, but they're kind of peripheral versus.
Well, my actual biographical fiction is another book. It's so crazy. I'm going to be doing biographical fiction for William Morrow that is based on the life of Sarah Forbes Bonetta. She is the African princess who was gifted to Queen Victoria in the 19th century. So I'm going to be doing a story about her life, and it'll take place predominantly in London and West Africa.
Wow.
Wow. So do you know, does Blackbirds have a pub date? Because I know there was a teaser about it in the back of Wild Woman.
Yeah, there's a few scenes in there. I was told that right now it's looking like April of 2022.
Okay.
So a year,
Yeah.
it's coming.
It's coming. And then you've got the court case story, and then you have
that's going to be a year later.
And then so you've got some things lined up.
I got a lot of writing to do.
And then the historical, that sounds I was thinking, because Vanessa Riley's got Island Queen coming soon.
Oh, yeah. That's Caribbean. I think Island Queen is more 17 something. Girl, we all grabbing a century and running with it. I mean, it's like.
But Denny, I mean, what's happening that's so important though is telling these stories of joy of marginalized communities where, those stories were always about strife and always about sorrow, and having writers now talking about that joy lived, joy continues. It's just immensely important.
It's immensely important, and there are a lot. Well, what's exciting to me as well, Vanessa's books are coming, Island Queen from William Morrow, but also in August of this year, Kaya Alderson's Sisters in Arms will be coming. And that's a story about the only African-American women's WAC group that ended up in France during World War II. So we're and that's just one of several stories. I mean, Piper Hughley has stories coming out about the.
Oh, she's got a cool one.
The dressmaker worked with Jackie Kennedy. The wedding dress.
And Lowe.
So, and I'm not even touching so many others. I mean, I did a review of a brilliant book by Sadiqa Johnson called Yellow Wife, which is it's historical fiction that is heart-rendering, heartbreaking, but just important storytelling. And I just love stories. I mean, this is the thing. We all love a good story. And one of the joys of the books that I am assigned for NPR is that I do rom-coms, I do historical fiction. I'm hoping to do a couple of YAs coming down the pike. And that's a lot of fun because I feel like I stay connected to all of the genres in some way, because sometimes you get so busy. You get so busy.
Well, you are. It sounds like, so you kind of get like entrenched.
Well, what did you have? You had 3 books come out almost in the same year.
They came out
in the same year,
a month apart, back to back to back. Yeah.
Back to back. So don't talk about me.
So we talked about so you've got 3 more books, and I'm sure you have stories and stories kind of like simmering in the background. So I can't wait to hear, next year when you're talking about Blackbirds, what else is coming that but are there any
We're already booking you, Denny. We're booking you for next year. You're just booked.
But
we just booked.
Questions from the chat, Danielle? Any other questions or comments that we?
That was our question. If I guess we should say last call. If anyone has any.
Last call. If you do have any other questions, and while we're waiting to see, let's hear what else the other. So Denny, do you have any other events coming up that you want to share about? Any other things we're doing?
We have. Well, I have more events because
I know you should go to Denny's website because she has some very nice graphics with all of the dates and things that she's doing.
So one thing I haven't talked about a lot is the Historical Novel Society. I'm doing some presentations with them for their online event. I'll be doing a presentation on what's it like to be a debut author with Sarah Penner and Margaret Rottenberg. Margaret wrote Finding Napoleon, and Sarah Penner is the 6 weeks and running New York Times bestselling author of The Lost Apothecary. And then
speaking of dual timelines,
Oh yes, and that's marvelous. I did a review of her book as well. It's I really like that book.
I want to read that book, and I want to read it even more after your review. Made me want to read it even more.
Yeah, she does an excellent job. There are I mean, right now it's more of like, yes, there are things coming up that are very exciting, and I will say that I did a TV interview with NBC in the Morning Blend. It's a Milwaukee morning show, and I think I can talk about this. Someone saw me. I can't name the show, but I've been invited to do an audition tape for a game show. I know. It's like, what? It's like, hey.
Heard it here first.
Here's my audition tape for the game show. So that came out of the blue.
That's awesome.
It's so disconnected to anything else that I was telling my agent and some other people about it, and they were like, forget it. It's like, we quit. This is ridiculous.
Only Denny. I know they were like,
right.
Of course, Denny. Of course.
This would happen to you. So that's sort of like a fun, an unexpected part. And as we all know, Hollywood is a calling all the time, but Hollywood calling is not Hollywood doing anything. Yeah. It's primarily like, hey, we want to look at it. And so people look at stuff. It's very exciting right now, though, because I love what's happening for romance writers, for different ethnicities that are getting attention from Hollywood, because they want to tell stories that will embrace a broader audience. And all I can say is it's about time. Let's do it, because I'm going to watch it. I'm even going to watch Bridgerton although Simon is gone. So this is a big move because everything has been about Simon. Okay. I'm just saying. Okay. I think I'll stop drinking and talking now. No, I'm not saying.
I'm gonna be watching for.
I was about to go over
I'm gonna be watching for movie news. I'm gonna be watching for what the game show is. I'm gonna be watching.
All of us are. I'm sure all of us are experiencing the same sort of energy, because I felt that I used to do. Do you remember a TV show called Moonlight that was about a vampire? Okay, I used to write reviews for that. And this is way before I was around the writing world. And during that time period, I think it was back in 2008, Hollywood had the big writer's strike. And I think the vibe in Hollywood has been changing a lot since then, because you get this entire, writers are looking for content. I mean, producers, they're looking for content, and they have been, you can only do so many Marvel comics before you got to come up with something else. And I really feel that is another part of the evolution. Not only they're recognizing that these stories that are being written by novelists around the globe are worth a look, a serious consideration.
Yes, roaring 20s of the 21st century. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's all get some movie deals. I need to go to parties in Hollywood. This is it.
Some champagne. That's right.
Champagne and the red carpet. That's all I have.
Angelina, do you have anything coming up you want to talk about?
Sure. Yeah, I've got a book coming out May 25th, Serving Sentence, my third in the Filthy Rich series. And just between you and I, we have a shopping agreement with producer for the Filthy Rich series. So don't tell anyone. This is very underneath the radar.
Unless they're on right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's just between the four of us. The third book, Serving Sin, is coming out May 25th. You can pre-order it now. And you can also, if you're a reviewer, you can get it on NetGalley. And then June 12th, I am going to be interviewing the guy who's protecting the top stars of Supernatural for the last 13 years.
Oh, yes, I saw that. How fabulous.
That was just this crazy thing. Yeah. So I'm going to be, the book that's coming out May 25th is a bodyguard book. And I just reached out to him, and I reached out to a bodyguard. He's a bodyguard for Jensen Ackles and Jared Padalecki for, again, 13 years, and nicest man. And he was
so
like,
you just
yeah, that sounds fun.
Hey, I'm gonna see if I can interview this guy.
I never thought he was going to say yes. I never thought he was going to start texting me and being like, hey, we've talked. Yeah, it's going to be, I'm going to Austin. I'm in Houston. He's in Austin. I'm going to go to Austin. We're going to do it live, like in person. And
they, Jason, I'm forgetting my baby's names, but Jensen. They live in Austin, don't they? Both of them.
Yeah, that's why he's there. He's
maybe you'll hook up.
I don't know. It's one of those things that I was like, I did not think this through. I thought he was going to say yes, the nicest man. But no, I'm going to talk about what it's like being a bodyguard of the stars. It's a fascinating job.
When is that interview? When is that?
June 12th.
June 12th. Okay.
Wonderful. Mark your calendars. That'll be fun.
But I thought, Denny, I knew you would enjoy this because you share my Supernatural crush.
I've been to at least 2 conventions. I have photos to prove it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
1 Outlander and way too many Buffy the Vampire Slayer conventions.
Are you ever going to tell anybody about your Spike fanfic?
Yeah, I've mentioned it.
If she hasn't mentioned it, you just did.
Right? But I have mentioned it publicly. It's out there.
She's mentioned it publicly.
Is back there. I was going to pull out
in that water bottle,
angel doll, but I did that last night, and that was way much more than people were expecting. But
that's so awesome, Denny.
I wrote fanfic for years, and it's still out there. It's still out there on some of the sites.
It's good stuff too. It's really good stuff.
Danielle, do you have anything coming up you want to talk about?
Yeah, I would love to talk about, I think I always give you guys a little sneak peek of the Fresh Fiction podcast. So last week we had friend of the Boozy Book Broads, our inaugural guest, Rosie Dannon, was on the Fresh Fiction podcast. It was such a fun episode. Rosie is obsessed with Survivor, which we did not talk about during our Boozy Book Broads discussion. And it, like, the way she spoke about it made me want to watch Survivor, which I don't think I think I watched like the first season. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Hasn't crossed my.
Yeah, but she really loves it. It's like her kind of escapist show. But we talk about that. Her new book is out. It was so much fun. And then next week, I want to plug next Wednesday, our interview with Talia Hibbert is going up.
Oh, wonderful.
She was so much fun. I'm obsessed with her. I sort of like fangirled on her, and she let me. She was very nice and gracious. But yeah, so that was really fun. We talked to her about kind of all of her. When we spoke to her, when we recorded, it was like right after she hit the New York Times bestseller.
Yeah. Oh, so I got
very exciting. It was very cool, and she's a great. This is like a little tease. She gives great book recommendations and like author recommendations to check out. So great. What I have coming up.
Yay. Nice. So that's the Fresh Fiction podcast that's coming up on Wednesday, you said, next Wednesday.
Every other Wednesday. And yeah, if you search Fresh Fiction, you'll see my face and my co-host Gwen's face pop up, and you can hear our voices.
So I'll plug, while we're chatting, I will plug our next Boozy Book Broads, which is going to be, our guest is Priscilla Oliveiras, and we're excited about that.
I said, hey, girl.
Yeah.
I guess I could just call her. But
yeah. Yeah, she is delightful. So it's going to be so much fun talking about her Keys to Love series set in Key West, which is exciting. And I have another Love Sweet Arrow event that Denny is actually a part of. On May 7th, we are doing a fun event called From the Stage to the Page. Yeah. And it's featuring authors who have a background in performing arts. So we have Denny, who was a dancer in her, she's still a dancer, but like
Not that dancer.
not that dancer anymore.
That
That's
dancer
yeah. So
would kill me if I tried to do what she did.
and we have Jen DeLuca, and we have Robin Covington, and we have Zio Axelrod, whose book, The Girl with Stars in Her Eyes, is coming out that week, and it's about a professional singer, and Zio herself is a professional singer. So very exciting to have that, and that's May 7th. So it's another Friday night Love Sweet Arrow event. So yeah, and then my rom-com, we're counting down now. We're in the less than 3-month mark. So
Oh, good. Oh.
so lots of stuff coming out. So I think if any other questions, Danielle, or anything else popped up. So now is the time for us to pick our nightly winner, our monthly winner.
Close my eyes. Scroll and scroll and scroll. All right, Linda. Linda has been all over the chat, I will say. So Linda, you are our winner. I know how to contact Linda. It'll be
Yeah.
I know her. It's fine.
And we need to thank Linda. So Linda keeps a romance event calendar for, so if you haven't seen it, she has a calendar that she keeps, like any event across Romance Landia that she sees, she will keep track of it. So
I'll put it in the chat right now. Follow her on Twitter, and that's where you can find it.
Okay.
Yeah, and she also, there's like a Google Calendar that you can connect with that will then kind of like merge with your Google Calendar, so they'll just pop up and you'll see all the other events.
That's a lot of work. Congratulations, Linda. Go for it.
No, it's like a wonderful gift she provides for Romance Landia to kind of keep us all organized, keep us on track. Yeah. So thank you so much, Denny, for being here with us this evening.
Thank you for inviting me. This has been fun and the least painful 90 minutes. I mean, this has been so much fun.
Having a little champagne while you do it doesn't hurt.
I think that helped. No, really, it's a pleasure to have the chance to chat with you ladies. I haven't seen you all in so long, so hopefully.
So long.
I know, that's why we start to talk and it's hard to stop talking because we haven't seen each other's faces. When you first popped up, I'm like, Denny, hello.
Because it's one
So everyone who's joining us tonight, thank you so much.
Oh yeah.
Thanks everyone. We'll see you next month.